let's focus on Xbox, right? You have the Phil Spencer interview, Minecraft they own, right? Warner Brothers needed a big win. They got it. It's making money. That's why this interview happens. But when you consider the conversation in gaming, which is what we're here for, Mav and Hargeet, is it's Xbox everything. Listen, we're going to talk about Xbox because we're Xbox, right? We're fans, right? That's our thing. You had the leaked photos or the accidentally leaked photos of the Oblivion remastered that looks amazing, right? Yesterday on social was taken over by Doom, the Dark Ages, with its 2 controllers and its wrap. That took over the conversation of gaming. You have now the new information that thanks to both Nate the Hate and Ecstasies, that we might be getting a Fallout 3 remastered this year. And now we have this interview. Now, granted, this is going to be a bit of a hodgepodge conversation because I want to take each individual tweet and just discuss what was on it. So this is going to be a fun conversation. So, Mav, I'm going to go to you first because I have a tweet here from Hazador Gaming, and it points out a couple of key points to the interview. This is an open-ended conversation. You take it in any direction you see fit, but I want to read it verbatim. And it's just one part of the big interview. And second half of the show, we're going to get into some of those other second parts because there's a few statements that were taken out of context, of course, because it's Phil Spencer saying it, where he's basically said that Game Pass isn't for everyone. And of course, all the negative Nancy's came out like, you see, even he doesn't like Game Pass. Come on, folks. Read the whole article and be for real. But I want to read what Hazador Gaming had to say, Mav, and this is what it said in verbatim. New interview with Phil Spencer on Microsoft's gaming business. And he has a couple of key points here. Committed to developing new IP. Game Pass as a healthy option for gamers. He's a big believer in Nintendo Switch 2 and the direction that company is going. And he has more unannounced games happening this year. And he goes on to say on a quote, some stuff that is unannounced, I'm walking in my head to make sure I don't leak anything. So again, Mav, this is an open-ended conversation. This is a big article. I had sent you all of the different quotes and tweets from Phil. But these particular points are pretty big. And I think one of the biggest here, and again, this is just me because I'm a greedy gamer and I don't have enough hands and time in a day to play what I have now. I still want more games. The fact that they have more unannounced games, and some of which have been called surprises, are happening this year. And the June showcase is only a couple of months away. Mav, I think we're in for something big this June.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious what the other games are. I mean, that's like, as speculation town is always on my mind. And
yes.
I'm
and
always
we're co-mayors,
thinking,
by the way.
Absolutely. And, I know we can count on a Call of Duty later this year, but I don't think that's necessarily what he's talking about because that's like an expectation that happens every single year, The Oblivion remake has already been, for the most part, leaked. So when he says he's walking in his head to make sure he doesn't leak anything, he could technically be talking about that, but I don't think so because, it's already kind of out there in the ether, right? So I think it's something else. I just don't know what it could be. And when I see and heard his interview or saw the interview, I was mainly thinking about, man, what? There's more games, holy crap. How is there even more? Because this year has more first party output, I think, than the history of Xbox. If you count everything from like the Tony Hawk that was revealed this year already that we didn't know about. We got Ninja Gaiden 4, which is actually being published by Xbox as well. And that is something that we surprisingly found out about this year. We already knew 2025 was going to be stacked, but they've just added more already. And knowing that we have the Oblivion thing around the corner that, according to numerous leakers are out there, is potentially next week as a shadow drop. Then the Call of Duty that hasn't been announced yet. It's just like this year is just full of games, man. So it's been in my head about what's the big thing that they're gonna surprise us with, or is it gonna be some smaller stuff still? And who knows, man? But I think it's just awesome to see that kind of first party output from any platform holder that has that much first party games. Doesn't matter if they're going other places or not. Us as Game Pass subscribers is the real winners here because we get all those games right away, day and date, you know? So, that was the other takeaway was, yeah, the, Game Pass is a healthy option, doubling down on, on anybody who ever said, "Hey, Game Pass is not sustainable, Game Pass is not profitable." Now other people are saying not enough people are signed up to Game Pass, but it still has way more subscribers to than any of the other actual premium subscription services for gaming. So, it's good that they've kind of cemented that as like, hey, this is a great healthy option for the consumers, especially in this day and age where everything is so freaking expensive. To be able to know that you have a Game Pass subscription and you have a regular pipeline of games to continuously look forward to is absolutely awesome. And if we think 2025 is crazy, 2025 is a lot about a lot of great games, right? And 2026 is going to be the year of the heavy hitters,
Yes.
right? The big IP, a bunch of the games that we've all been waiting for a long time. You have some big time IP in games coming out from massive franchises all hit in 2026 also, man. So yeah, it just seems like, it's a confident fill. I think they're really liking the approach of releasing their games on these other platforms because they've been number one dominating the pre-order sales charts on PlayStation,
Yep.
right? Just kind of overtaking their storefront for the most part. If you looked at somebody had posted last week a shot of the top pre-ordered games on PlayStation, and it was just all Xbox stuff for the most part. It was over 50%, I think, was some form
I
of these
had six
Xbox
of the
games.
12. Six of the 12, so it was at the 50% mark. It's funny you say that, Matt, because a couple of months ago I got panned pretty bad on socials because of it. I said, what happens? And I think I said it on prime time because Hargeet was there. And I said, what happens when Xbox first party games take up half of the PlayStation top 10, top 12, top 15 games that are most pre-ordered? And it happened. It like literally happened. And you're talking about not just the regular editions that were hitting in the the ones, the twos, the threes, the fours. You were talking the $100 editions of these games. Forza, of course, Indiana Jones, which was released today. There was quite a few games in there, and I think there could. I mean, listen, this all has to do with the output that's not there right now for Sony. The output for Sony is Xbox games. I don't think people realize that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they have so much output and like I think it's working well for Xbox now because it's like extra money for those franchises, and those games that they're making. So they have, all the Game Pass subscribers that are funneling money into Xbox. You have the people that are buying games on Xbox. You have people that are buying the games on PC. Now you have the guys that are buying the games on those other platforms as well. And it's all just helping them and their business and their franchise grow where they've been kind of capped out on console sales anyway. This has just helped funding more games and help growing their business. And I see why they were doing what they're doing. And we don't all have to like it. But it makes sense for them as a business to continue to find other ways to grow as opposed to charging outrageous prices for the games that they're selling, right? And we see the limitation from like Nintendo of what happens when okay, we're going to have a smaller install base on the Switch 2 at launch because we're not going to be able to move people over. We still need to increase our profits. We still need to increase the amount of money that we're making. So what are we going to do? We're going to charge $80 for Mario Kart World, right? Because we can, right? Whereas now with this situation, well, there's other avenues that Microsoft is making that money. They're releasing these games later in other places and making the money on the back end that way. And as for us as Game Pass subscribers, it's like, hey, nothing really changes. We just still have more games to look forward to than ever before. So I've actually becoming I was never really bothered by any of that stuff that they were doing. But I mean, becoming more of like, well, if these companies are always looking for ways to have to grow, I'd rather them increase access to games for people and sell more games than raise the prices of the games, right? And I like that he still says Game Pass is a healthy option, because that's for the hardcore, the enthusiasts that play a lot of games. That's going to be our best avenue for value to play those games, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we have so many coming out. Like just the first party alone, it's tons of savings per year. That's just with the first party. It doesn't even count any of the third party day and date games or anything like that, right? So, yeah, I love the comments. It's coming from a place of confidence as well. I think when he says big believer in Nintendo, it's because they're relieved they finally have a platform that they can actually put stuff on. It's not going to be the most advanced thing out there, but at least it's to the point now to where all these Xbox One generation style games that are still cross gen and maybe even some that are next gen only can actually go onto the Nintendo platforms and treat them as a better partner, right? So yeah, tons of great stuff there. The developing the new IP thing as well. Love to see that. That's why we get games like South of Midnight, right? That's how we get these
Yes.
kind of games from being creative and allowing these studios to make all this different kind of variety of games. I remember back in the day when Game Pass started, people were gonna be like, it's gonna kill innovation. Everything's just gonna be games of service, right? Yeah, but
And here
no,
we
it's
are.
not. We got Avowed this year. We got South of Midnight. We got Hellblade 2. Was it last year, or the
Mhm.
year before? I can't remember.
Last year. Yeah.
Starfield is a single player only game as well. Like it just tons of games that are made specifically just for the experience within itself, and a lot of unique original things that would have never been made otherwise, man. So yeah, I just think it's overall these like, okay, yeah, I like where this is going. I like what we're doing, and they're gonna keep going in that direction, man. So I love it.
There's a lot to look forward to. There's a
Yeah.
lot to be excited about. You mentioned single player games, right? Right. And what's interesting? If you just take a step back, obviously our brother Steel Rain uses this terminology on a regular basis. When you take that third, that RTS perspective, just let's just take off the stripes for whatever your color your team is, and let's just look at this from being a human being with eyes, right? Just look at the playing field. The playing field is loaded for Xbox, not so much for Nintendo. Nintendo's going to have their thing. They're going to do their thing. I think they're going to ultimately break the industry with $80, $90 games. We'll see how that works out. I don't think they're going to sell as many games. I'm not buying as many games as I used to because that's ridiculous. And we'll see if they sell as many consoles at this price. Sony has problems that nobody wants to admit is going on. Xbox, like I said, is the best positioned of all three. Why? Well, because they already have games as a service that are making them money hand over fist each and every month. They have a service that has 30, potentially 40 million subscribers, right? It's growing not only just on console, but growing exponentially on PC, right? But with all of that said, I want to bring up those three particular points from Hazardor Gaming. And again, please, if you're not following Hazardor Gaming, I here to tell you folks, you're doing it all wrong because he does have a lot of really, really good information. So let me just pull up those things. I was looking at a DM. I'm sorry. Here it is. Let me just find it. All right. So you know what? Argy, obviously, this conversation with Hasbro Gaming, who posted, some points of view from the interview, I'm very interested to get your thoughts on it because I think there are two major points here, right? Game Pass as a healthy option. I think that is an option, and I think in the climate that we're in, that people do not want to admit that there is using the R word, a recession, and nobody wants to admit that when you consider prices being raised by both Nintendo with their console and their games, services are being raised. I would imagine that Sony is going to do the $80 thing. I do not think that they're going to be immune from it. They've already raised the price of the console in a couple of countries. They've already raised the prices of their streaming service. Xbox is a healthy option. There's no doubt. And speaking to several GameStop managers that I know, which of course will remain nameless for reasons, right? They're getting a lot of PlayStation 5 trade-ins to buy both the Series S and X consoles. And specifically, and again, no names here, when asked why, it was the price. It was Game Pass. It was people finding out that they have a service that's like Netflix, like Disney Plus, like Hulu, like Amazon Prime, and they're getting all of these games. And a lot of these people trading in the consoles traded in physical games. These are the normies. These are the casual gamers who only buy 2 and 3 games a year, but will be ultimately have no problem spending $20 a month to get all of these games, all their Maddens, all of their Call of Duties, all of their FIFAs, all of their 2Ks. It's in Game Pass. And the other thing, and I think this is a big one, well, actually, there are two of them, two more big ones, committed to developing new IP. That is huge. And more unannounced games, Hargeet. We literally just had this conversation last night with, God, it's too many games. Please stop it.
Yeah. And what did Hazardor Gaming specifically say? Do we have that like quote? I don't know what he actually said. But look, I went through most of what was in the article for Variety with Phil. Yeah, the differences are very interesting now. It's going to get more and more stark, right? Game Pass is that umbrella that allows them to make games that the other platforms are walking away from, or other publishers. The only other one that's doing this is Nintendo, where they still have a broad, breadth of different types of games.
Yep.
And you kind of saw that in their showcase, right, with the Switch 2. They didn't even announce their big guns, right? There was no mainline Zelda or Mario game. They just really have a broad breadth of different types of things that they keep, trying, right? So good for them. But that has certainly kind of dwindled at PlayStation. They have kind of focused, and that was kind of the Jim Ryan era, right? Was focus on the bigger games, bigger budget games. And I don't know if that has really panned out, right? So a lot of those games tend to not do as well. Some of them do really well, right? And good for them. But some of them really don't. And then they're starting to run into these budget issues, right? So we'll see how that continues with PlayStation. I think it's better to have a lot of smaller games. It gives you more potential for people to just pick up something small and play. But, it's a different world now. Economically, things have changed a lot in the gaming arena. It used to take a lot less effort to make a game. Now it takes a lot to make anything. You have South of Midnight here. That took a while to come, to fruition, right? And I don't know how well it's going to do financially. But again, it's shielded by Game Pass. It's, the cost of making the game has already been kind of paid. So it's really just gravy on top of that. I don't know how their metrics are going to work. But, we'll see what they do. But yeah, this is kind of the thing. And, the showcases for Xbox are just going to always be full of amazing things because they just have so many studios. They have some of those big black hole games that cover a lot of other costs, right? So, this is just kind of the par for the course for us. The other thing that's interesting is this switchover. And again, it's anecdotal. I don't want to take this as like it's a universal thing, but it's anecdotal that we're hearing about people trading in PlayStations for Xboxes, and it's mostly because of this, the number of games and Game Pass. And the big one here is it's Call of Duty, right? That game that people pretty much buy consistently every year is now part of that service. And hey, along with that, you get everything else that they have along with EA, right? You get the EA games. Yes, a little bit late, but you get the EA games. And if you don't have FOMO, that's a pretty good, compelling, option to choose. And if you're savvy enough to figure out that you can go get, code online instead of paying directly $20 a month, and you get away with almost $10 a month or lower, that's pretty cool, right? I mean, you have to pay for online anyway. And when you start putting in the online cost plus Call of Duty, you pretty much have paid for Game Pass Ultimate for a year. And with that, you just get everything else, right? It's just, and it gets PC access, it gives you cloud access, right? You just get all this potential options there. Xbox is basically becoming the value system. But now here's the thing. I want to be cautious that Xbox isn't also going to increase their prices.
Oh no,
We don't know what's gonna happen.
they very much could.
Right.
I'm not saying that they are completely removed from the conversation, but if that does happen, let's say for instance the $80 game thing takes over the industry, and I'm going to tell you this right now, there is something that could,
there he goes.
Oh, there could be something, in my opinion, that would be disastrous, and it was the terminology.
Boom, you cut out for the last like 20-30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what you were saying.
Okay.
I heard him. That's maybe is your connection.
It was maybe me on my side, but you were fine. I just couldn't hear Boom.
Okay. All right. Well, what I was saying is that you made mention of the potential of Xbox raising their prices, and what I meant to say, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. If you already heard me, folks, they're not immune from this. They very well could raise their prices. Here's the problem. This could be, and I've said this before, and I'm going to stand on this stone and die. Okay, could be disastrous for the entire industry, especially when you use the terminology, the variable pricing. That is incredibly dangerous, because what that says is that you think about $80 games, like, oh, okay, I can do an $80 game every now and again. What happens if GTA is legitimately $100, which we heard last year was happening? This Nintendo thing opens the door. So yes, Xbox could raise their prices, but let's look at this realistically. Hypothetically, if they raise their prices, obviously Game Pass could go up, just like your Disney Plus, just like your Netflix, and what it ultimately is it going to go up? $1, $2, $5? I don't know. And when it does happen, we will give them smoke, as we're supposed to, because we're customers, we're consumers first. But at least there is an option that you don't have to buy the $80 game from PlayStation and from Nintendo. You can, what Phil said, have the healthy Game Pass option.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know if we're talking about the specific thing where he said, like Game Pass isn't for everyone.
Yeah, well, you can make mention of it.
So
break it down exactly what he said.
Yeah, that basically, look, in the industry there are different types of gamers, right? Different engagement styles that people have. And Game Pass is not for everybody. And I know like some players that basically the only game they play is Call of Duty, right? So they buy that every year and they just play Call of Duty. And it's like, well, okay, for you, maybe even if you had access, even if it costs the same or it's less, even if it's cheaper to just buy Game Pass, the problem is they would never use the service because it would never go to anything else, right? So they don't see the value because it's like, oh, I'm never going to play any of that stuff, right? So, convincing them to say, hey, go ahead and try it. Maybe you'll download something. Maybe that's a way to work with that. But a lot of people really only have so much time. And, they're like, this is what I do because I enjoy it, right? It's my pastime. This is what I do. I just get on with my buddies and we play Call of Duty. Fair enough, right? And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. And it's a similar thing with any of these like black hole games, right? I play Fortnite. Okay, fine. That's it. That's your game. Cool, right? And you don't need anything else. Fair enough, right? So for those folks, it does not necessarily make sense that you would go get a service, right? If you're a CS:GO player on PC, okay, like you don't need it. You don't need anything else, right? You're playing one of those, Riot Games, like, and you say like, I don't need all the characters that come with Game Pass. Okay, you don't need it, right? You play what you need to play, right? And people get like your World of Warcraft. Okay, that's it. You go play your World. Okay, fair enough, right? So this is the way he's looking at it and saying, look, there are plenty of gamers out there that just play a handful of games, and those games they already have or their annual. Am I still coming through? Okay, here we go. My video kind of froze.
Yeah, you're back.
Yep. Okay. So that's really it. And so he basically said there are customers where Game Pass absolutely works, and there are customers that it just doesn't make sense, and they want to buy their couple of games a year. Feel free to buy those couple of games a year. We're not forcing you to pick one way or the other. So in other words, our marketing isn't, you must buy Game Pass, and we are only focused on Game Pass as the mechanism of Xbox. No, it's whatever works for you, right? And in a world where they're putting their games on other platforms, you want to entice them to buy those games on those platforms, right? The whole point is to get more revenue, right? And Game Pass doesn't exist on PlayStation or Nintendo or Steam, right? So if that's where you want to buy your game, absolutely buy your game, no problem, right? So he's going to focus on, hey, everybody, and this is on console as well. Many of us have bought the collector's edition of many games, which means we bought the game even though it's in Game Pass, right? Yep. Fair enough. That's okay, right? It's up to us as a consumer what we want to do, right? How we want to engage. So that's really all he's saying. So Game Pass is fine. It's good where it's at. They're getting growth where they expect to get it, but they're not focusing like saying, hey, that is the mechanism for Xbox. Somehow that message was somehow contorted, and it would seem like Xbox equals Game Pass. And I was like, no. Xbox is a full-on publisher of many, many games that are across all domains, right? Mobile to PlayStation to Nintendo to PC and to their console, right? They're everywhere, right? So they want to make sure that people understand that you can buy your game wherever you want to, play your game wherever you want to. They're not locking that away, right? So that was kind of the point of that. And that's accurate. I mean, we've all been saying the same thing. Like if it's not for you, if you're not going to engage with all the games and content in there, then Game Pass isn't necessarily your thing, right? Because I know, like colleagues, friends, that's it. They just play Call of Duty. It's like, okay, cool. Like it's not for you, right? And I'm not going to force this that you must buy. It's like, no. It makes sense. I get it. All you do is play this one game. Fair enough. Enjoy the game, right? I love the fact that you're a gamer. This is great. Enjoy your pastime, right? And if that's all you want to engage with, no problem, right? And for Microsoft, that's awesome because Call of Duty is one of theirs, and they will keep getting the money, right? That is one of the beauties of having one of these black hole games. They have many of them, several of them, so that's awesome for them. And then they will also look at other ways to monetize it, right? So you're seeing the transmedia thing where it's going to TV or movies and all that stuff. That's going to continue, not for everything, but it's going to continue. But yeah, so I think that was kind of one of his points. I don't know if that was taken the wrong way or the right way by people in the rest of the world or whatever. But I think what he said was pretty accurate. There are customers, they're just not going to need this, right? They won't be engaging with all these games. They only have so much time, and all they want to do is play like the one or two games they like. That's it. And that's fair. It's fine. You don't have to. Right?
I gotta call out the coverage of that quote though, like as well, because after this interview, I think for the most part, all I saw was instead of everybody talking about, oh my God, there's more games coming, more all this other stuff. It's
exactly.
Like Phil Spencer says you don't need Game Pass. Like it's like, okay, here we go. Ridiculous. And these are the same morons that all were screaming, I hate being forced into Game Pass. Nobody was forcing your ass into Game Pass in the first place. It was always an option. If you want to subscribe to your games and actually have a service where you get your games day and date and you find the value and all of these things that they're giving, Game Pass is for you. If you, like Hargy said, if you just play Call of Duty, I remember last year when Call of Duty was like, hey, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 confirms coming to Game Pass day one. All these guys out there are like, I don't need Game Pass. Why would I subscribe to Game Pass? Why would I spend $20 a month for a $70 game? You're not going to, you freaking idiot. You're just going to buy the game because it's an option. Nobody is forcing you to do anything. It's always been an option. It is up to the consumer on what value they see and what they're purchasing. The reason people felt like they were being forced into Game Pass to begin with is because they were too enticed by it because it was too good of a damn deal. And you can't complain about, oh my God, I feel obliged to subscribe to something because this is too good to be true. I hate this feeling of being forced. No, it's an option. You've always been able to buy your games. You've always been able to buy your games. It is no different today than it was when the service launched way back in like 2016, 2017, whenever that was. You get day and date games, or you can buy your games. It's always been that way. I think what is different now is Game Pass kind of understands everything more about what they expect for the consumer and the growth for Game Pass to be. and also the kinds of gamers that are going to be still purchasing their games, and they're completely happy either way. This is the thing that people don't understand. People think that Xbox either wants every single person to be a Game Pass subscriber, or the same people say Xbox expects every single person to buy their games. No, they are getting your money either way, and they are completely happy and content to get your money either way, depending on the kind of gamer you are. It is working for them. Everybody get it through your head. If Phil Spencer says you don't need Game Pass, he is speaking to you who probably doesn't need it. If you're subscribed to it and use it all the damn time, guess what? You probably need it. He's not talking to those people. It's just common sense stuff that these guys run with these stupid headlines and articles all the time for clicks, and they will twist this words this way, and the next time that another game is promoted as going to Game Pass day and date, they'll say, "Oh, I don't need a Game Pass. I hate this." Yeah, okay. I hear you guys.
So I'll just play devil's advocate to try to think of why they would be like this. I think there's a lot of like hesitation based on where the movies and TV arena went, right? Where a lot of that has gone to streaming, and some people don't.
Yeah, but the difference is like, okay, Stranger Things comes out to Netflix, right?
Yep.
You don't buy Stranger Things right away. It's not an option. It never has been. So there's always been the defining difference between the gaming subscription versus Netflix.
Yeah, and we know that.
Right.
But the average consumer may not understand that and say, "Oh, you mean I have to do this?" And that's a messaging issue for Xbox to handle.
Yeah,
right?
sure, absolutely.
But I'm just trying to play
they're at fault on
advocate,
certain aspects, sure,
right? Because I fully agree with you, Matt. Of course, obviously, it makes sense.
So,
right?
but the guys
exactly
writing these dumb ass headlines don't know that. The guys talking about this stuff on podcasts all the time don't know that. Yeah. They know it. But the headlines and stupid stuff like that that spreads the information, that spreads the misinformation, not Xbox themselves. No wonder consumers are confused when the journalists out there don't know how to do their damn jobs.
And that is part of the headache they run into, right? And like things get mischaracterized and misrepresented. It's sad, but it is what it is, right? So, but I agree with you 100%. Obviously, that's the case. But I can also see it from somebody who doesn't understand or takes in whatever the media is saying and says, "Oh, wait, I'm like forced to do this. I don't want." Like, okay, fair enough. I get that.